Jimmy Dore and the DSA got into a little bit of a fight, and as the tolerant left, I'm going to be very tolerant about the matter. And in fact, I am, because I think that both bring up good points, and I actually am a fan of the DSA and I'm a fan of Jimmy Dore. So we're going to I took a few screenshots and we're going to go through them in a random order and break them down. So Jimmy Dore said on Twitter, "We know Medicare for all won't be a reality under Trump, but a House floor vote is the best which side are you on political opportunity in 2019 and sets the stage to make Medicare for all the decisive issue of 2020. That's actually him quoting the DSA pressure campaign guide. So that's kind of is one of the funny things about the whole force the vote thing, especially with Jimmy Dore, is he's kind of just saying, look, I'm just making your argument. I'm not even making your argument for you. I'm just repeating what you said in the past and holding you accountable to it. But I think, and a lot of people are attacking his character because of it, saying that he's decisive, using divisive rhetoric. And in some way, yeah, are they right? Yeah, maybe, but we don't want to attack his character. Let's actually look at what he's saying, because if he's holding you accountable, I don't care what words he called you, as long as it's not hate speech. He's holding you accountable to it. But on the flip side, here's a tweet by Peter of the DSA, who I think that this was actually a good point. He said, like, sorry, dude, if you wanted us to have Medicare for all during this pandemic, you should have been with us in the fight to elect a president who wouldn't veto it and would spend every waking moment fighting for us, but you weren't. You're in the sidelines attacking Bernie. So then he brings up that Peter is saying that they supported Bernie Sanders for president in 2020. And Jimmy Dore supported Tulsi Gabbard, which was kind of weird. It's almost like he really liked Tulsi Gabbard for some reason. And she's not perfect. She's far from it. And the more time that goes on, the more it's like she'll mess up, and Jimmy Dore will still cover her for it. But, you know, a lot of Jimmy Dore supporters still supported Bernie Sanders, though. And Jimmy Dore said good things about Bernie Sanders when it was warranted. I also feel like this is a good point, but it also is somewhat in the past. Like, okay, maybe Jimmy Dore didn't keep pushing Bernie Sanders like other commentators were doing, but Bernie Sanders didn't get the ticket anyways, and regardless of what Dore did, he would have got screwed over by the DNC. All right, let's see what other points. Yeah, Peter saying Bernie speaks for me. So he's really all about Bernie Sanders, and I think there's kind of a vendetta about, well, Jimmy, you didn't even support Bernie Sanders. You supported Tulsi Gabbard, who, and my take on it is Tulsi Gabbard, like, straight up said she doesn't support Medicare for all, but she supported something else that they were trying to spin into being Medicare for all, and Dore was going along with it. Now, someone else I'm assuming they're from the DSA, they said, this dude has been yelling at DSA to do a thing without offering any good answers, just screaming at critics who disagree with him and accusing them of not wanting Medicare for all. And he's going to call one of our members a Karen for pointing out we don't tolerate that from our own members. So she was upset that Dore, and I think it's actually, I don't really like it when people use the Karen term, because I think it's overused and it's kind of silly, but it is a good way to describe this kind of like white privileged entitled attitude, or whatever you want to call it. So Dore had said, this Karen is just dying to call my manager, but I don't have one. Is this really what the DSA is doing while we are doing force the vote? Yep, pathetic. Ask them exactly when they think the right time is for Medicare for all. They have no answer nor timeline for implementing it. And I understand what Jimmy Dore is getting at here, because he's not one for civility politics. So he cares about Medicare for all. He cares about UBI. I think he's open for. He cares about these welfare programs, and he's a bit. I guess he's a bit of a social democrat in that respect, but he's like, it's very different from the other social democrats like the DSA, because the DSA has this air of civility. Like, you go, I have worked with the DSA on occasions, and I've had to go over their terms of service, or whatever you call it, their like group rules, and it is very much like being respectful to people's pronouns, and they absolutely don't tolerate anything that you wouldn't want them to tolerate, right? But they're all about that, and Jimmy Dore is more about, like, he doesn't really give a fuck what your pronoun is. He'll call you whatever you want to be called, but he cares about the issues, not about identity politics. So I understand that side of it too. So Peter from DSA says, to be clear to the incredibly pedantic people getting annoyed at this take, being disruptive and shouting at class enemies is good. Using macho aggression and loudness to dominate organizing discussions is not good, and stopping it is feminist. So I understand what he's saying there, but this is something about the DSA that a lot of people get turned off at, is this attitude of like, and I get why they do it, because the DSA's attitude about this whole thing is that they want to usher in a world where everyone is respectful, and it's a limited hierarchy. There's this mutual respect that happens, and they believe that they need to start with their organization first. So that's why they are very mindful to people's pronouns. But as we saw with some video that leaked from a DSA meeting, when they start talking about aggressive sense, and someone used the term guys, and somebody got very upset and said, I don't like you using gendered language like that. And it was actually very hard for them to even count up a vote, because there's so many things where it's like, all right, we don't want to offend any of our disabled comrades, so we're going to not clap, we're going to do this instead. And that's all fine, but to people on the outside that looked in, they were like, this seems like a cult. So it's kind of funny, because the DSA is so trying to be so tolerant to these marginalized groups, but then other people, even people in those marginalized groups, but especially to people outside of it that don't get it, they're just outside looking in, and they're thinking, what the heck is going on? They're trying to be so inclusive that it almost makes them exclusive, because then you feel like you're on edge, like, oh god, if I use the wrong pronoun here, people might take that as a slight, when really I just have a hard time tracking a dozen different pronouns. So I have worked with the DSA on occasion, and it's cool, but like at one point I called someone who identifies as a man, I called him sir, and there was just this weird, like, everyone looked at me weird, like we don't fucking do that here, like. And I get that. I'm definitely very sympathetic to the anarchist idea of calling everyone comrade, but still, I've been a working man my whole life. I've had to call people sir, and that's a way that I've actually built camaraderie with a lot of my coworkers. Is I'd call them sir, and they'd also call me sir. So that's just something that happened that was like, oh shit, I'm supposed to call them comrade instead, or use their name. But it's just this attitude of like, oh shit, I'm on edge about this. And Jimmy Dore is not like that at all. Like, if he called you the wrong pronoun, he'd be like, oh shit, my bad. But anyways, we need to force the vote. We need to stop these bourgeois scum. So it is just kind of a difference in having this like almost like liberal progressive sensibility, and then you have Jimmy Dore, who some people might consider him more of a class reductionist, but really he gives a fuck about Black Lives Matter. He cares about trans issues, just not as much as a lot of other people do. Does that make him harmful or problematic? I don't think so, because his emphasis is not on feminism. It's not on trans issues. I think those issues are important, but I go to him when I want to hear like the Alex Jones of the left, when I want to hear somebody ranting about holding the politicians accountable and about economic issues. That's his job. All right, so this quote I like. I have nothing against working class people who support the force the vote idea. This is Peter saying it from DSA. I welcome them to join our DSA meetings and debate it with us like comrades, but I wish they would turn their anger against the insurance companies and capitalist politicians, not others in their class. All right, that's awesome. The only problem is that Jimmy Dore is, the whole force of the vote is holding the politicians accountable. So it's unfortunate that he got in this skirmish with the DSA, but ultimately those are just little issues that I don't think we should care about as much. In fact, maybe it's silly that I'm doing this video because I'm saying I don't think it's a big deal, but really I want to do this video to say if you're a DSA person or a Jimmy Dore person, I'm a fan of both, and I've noticed pros and cons to both organizations. In fact, for a nonprofit that I work with, I have reached out to the DSA to try to get help or to work with them. And their answer to me, when they do respond, the bigger city ones, you're going to have a hard time even getting them to respond. I mean, you have to be really involved with them, which is cool. But the main response I get from them is, first, we need to absolutely make sure you're a member, and you need to go to a few meetings and everything, and then maybe we will discuss your cooperative project with you. But I get the sense that they are so focused on like this partisan political game that they've got their own thing going on. So it sucks because they have this attitude where they're not just going to be open as a pet project to anyone on the left, which is fine, but we do kind of need this collaboration. So we are a bit divided because we have the Green Party, the People's Party is starting up, and now we have the DSA. And I think the DSA is actually like one of the absolute best ones for actually getting involved in politics. So I do think the DSA is great. They've been able to get a lot of people from their party in local governments. The Green Party has not been able to do that. Every 4 years, the Green Party runs a candidate and maybe they get 1% of the vote if they're lucky. So I think the DSA is great. I think Jimmy Dore is great, but Dore does have a point that according to the DSA's own manual, they believe in pressuring the House to get shit done. I mean, that's one of their whole points is we need to have this bargaining ability where we have a lot of people coming together and we're able to say, hey, we're not gonna vote for Pelosi, which was Dore's idea, unless we open up a floor vote for Medicare for all. So the DSA should be before that, and to some people it's going to seem like an excuse. Hey, yeah, we have this campaign guide. Sure, well, they just completely ignore that. Well, Dore, I don't like the attitude that you have. And then Dore, of course, responds with more vitriol, like, I don't give a fuck about my attitude or your attitude. I care about Medicare for all. And I do respect that, and I see it's more of like Dore is one of the old school socialists, where and he's gonna get called a class reductionist for this, but it's like I try to imagine the like anarchists in the Spanish Civil War going around and saying their pronouns before they go into battle to fight fascists. That's just not something that happened at that time. And while I think it's great that organizations like the DSA have a policy for making sure everyone feels included, it's just sometimes it stretches into this area where people that even come from a progressive background are like not uncomfortable with it, but it's just that they don't care for it. So like I think that we should respect everyone's pronouns, but also if I don't know what someone's pronoun is, I'm not going to break a conversation to ask them. I'm instead just going to call them by their name. And if somebody came to me and said, "Hey, dude, your scent is too aggressive. We need to ask you to leave," I would feel very awkward going back to those organizations. So I understand that that's not something that happens often. Maybe that was was that the California DSA? I'm not sure, but maybe that was like an ultra woke thing that was happening, and it's not usually like that. But it's just the vibes of the DSA have this very like, we're very inclusive, and we have mentally challenged comrades. And once again, that's just giving so much ammo to the other side to be like, don't work with these people. They've even said it themselves that they're crazy. They have a problem with aggressive sense, with gendered language, which they see as a contradiction when you're saying, hey, let's talk about our pronouns, but then also let's not use gendered language. Like, guys, it's for a lot of people that aren't super woke, it does come off as weird to them. So that's why I think that we have this discrepancy between old school socialists like Dore, who have experience with having back problems and not being able to get the proper treatment or even the proper diagnosis. And we have these new woke millennials and Gen Zers that are coming at it from, well, first let's have a safe space for all of us, and then we can go and try to make the world more safe. So I understand both sides of the argument. I do lean more towards Dore's side though. Like I said, I've worked with the DSA in the past, and I think they're great, but their first answer to everything is, well, we need to get you a member first, and then but they already have their own thing going on. So it's kind of hard to influence them to do what you want them to do, which is okay, but it's just for people like Jimmy Dore that are saying, hey, come on, everyone, get behind this force this vote thing. It's almost like they're making up an excuse saying, no, we don't want to do that because it's kind of patriarchal how you're trying to dominate the conversation. Okay, but if shit needs to get done, I don't give a fuck who is saying it. If they're a queer indigenous person or if it's a problematic white guy, whatever. As long as we're getting the shit done, I really don't care. So yeah, here's even a meme that DSA has. Don't make me tap the sign. DSA is not a free volunteer pool for your pet project. And that's respectable. I can respect that. But it does make it kind of hard to work with them, because I would have people from the DSA reach out with me and said, hey, I heard that you wanted to do some organization with your nonprofit. And I said, yes, but then I'm never able to get a meeting with them. And it's like, okay, so I got to go out and be a DSA member. And now as a DSA member, I still can't get a meeting with them, and that's fine, but it's like they're very focused on their own partisan game. And I completely support that 100%, especially if they stick to their original partisan game, which is pressuring the House to force a floor vote. But they're not doing that right now.